guys, it's Sam, and today I'm going to start a new video series kind of thing here on my channel, and it's going to be if you like this, try that with video games and books. So I'm going to talk about a video game that if you like that video game, try these books, and also kind of if you like these books, then try that video game. This is a topic that was actually voted on by my Patreon supporters, so every month my Patreon supporters get to vote in a poll and vote on a topic for a video for either this channel or my personal channel, and this is the one that won this month, so if you want to get in on that action, I will post my link to my Patreon on the screen. So this first video is going to actually be about Assassin's Creed, and since Assassin's Creed games have a lot of different games to them, a lot of different time periods, I'm going to break this down into multiple different videos and such, because each game kind of has a different feel to it, takes place a different time period, etc. So this first video is going to be about just the Assassin's Creed games in general, and then I do have a few recommendations that are geared more towards Assassin's Creed 2 trilogy. So for those of you that haven't played Assassin's Creed, this is a video game in which you play an assassin from a different era of time. There are leagues of assassins that have been in the world for a very long time. We're about to get the origins in the next game coming out, which is going to be in Egypt, and I'm so hyped. Anyway, ahead of myself. This series follows assassins throughout time. You're actually a person in a kind of virtual reality where you get tapped into memories and you get to play out your ancestors' memories, because assassin type skills are genetic, apparently, in this kind of system. So it has this kind of sci-fi, fantasy-esque thing going on, along with the historical fiction. You do have actual historical figures that are present in a lot of the games. Some of them you have to assassinate, some of them you work with, stuff like that. It is one of my favorite video game franchises. It's so much fun. There have been peaks and valleys throughout the franchise, but ultimately it's one that I remain really loyal to. It's always a fun time. There's been multiple different time periods that have been followed so far, plenty of them, but for this one I'm going to talk about, again, just the overarching themes of Assassin's Creed and the Assassin's Creed 2 trilogy. So Assassin's Creed 2 follows Ezio Auditore, and you get to follow him for a whole trilogy. So you follow him from the beginning of his assassin career to the very end, which is amazing and so much fun. And you become really attached to this one character, and these games don't tend to have a ton of side characters. They do and they don't. They have side characters, like I said, a lot of historical figures that will come in and help you, and you'll do side quests and stuff like that related to them, and different assassin type stuff related to them. They'll give you gear and everything else, but it's not like you work with a crew of any kind. So this is really a game that is focused mostly on the one protagonist and you being really bonded to them and seeing history play out kind of through their eyes. So with that in mind, if you really enjoyed the Assassin's Creed 2 trilogy, I think you would like The Thief by Megan Whalen Turner. This is the first book in this. I think it's a quartet, if not 5 books, but I haven't read the rest of the series. I've only read this one so far. I do plan to continue with the series, but this is an older YA series, so it doesn't really feel very YA. It's YA from before YA was an actual category that they marketed books for. So this follows this one protagonist, and he's an amazing thief. He's the most well-known thief, and he is being sent on a mission from somebody to steal this magical artifact relic thing. So it kind of feels like one giant quest in a video game, and you're really just following his perspective. There are other side characters around that he doesn't really want to deal with, and it's not like he has a ton of friends around or a crew or anything. It's him. He's a solitary thief that is going and doing this thing in this book. So this really kind of reminds me of the feeling that you get while playing those games as just this sole protagonist without a whole crew behind you, the way that some other games that I will talk about in the future have a whole ensemble cast to them. So like I said with the general themes of Assassin's Creed, if you like the whole sci-fi fantasy element mixed with almost historical fiction type thing, then I think you would really enjoy the Queen of the Tearling series by Erika Johansson. I actually just finished the second book in the series, and that kind of element comes in a lot more, but this series is more than you would think at just first glance, and that's exactly kind of how Assassin's Creed worked. When Assassin's Creed first started, it really was just this historical fiction kind of game, and as you got farther into the game and farther into the series, it's kind of gone off the deep end with a little bit of its fantasy sci-fi. It's reining it in a little bit, but for a while there things got a little rocky. But with this, it has that way better executed, but I can't talk about it much as the series goes on. You kind of get more of that. This first book doesn't have a ton of that. It feels just very fantasy, but you come to realize as time goes on that things aren't always as they seem. It's a really different, unique take on that kind of genre of like genre blending thing going on, and I really love it, and it's like the best, most well done that I've seen in any series that has attempted to do that. Now, the Assassin's Creed 2 trilogy specifically takes place in the Italian Renaissance period, so like Leonardo da Vinci's around and everybody else, all those people that are doing stuff during that like Renaissance time period. But sadly, I don't have any historical fiction books that take place during that time period. So I did want to talk about some books that mix in that kind of fantasy element with the historical fiction element, but that lean more towards historical fiction than fantasy, I would kind of say. These, I mean, they're the blend, but I feel like the Queen of the Tearling definitely leans more fantasy and has some other stuff mixed in. These are more like historical fiction with some fantastical elements mixed in, which I kind of feel like is how the Assassin's Creed series is. Overall, you're always, for the most part, playing within the historical setting. There is stuff happening back in like modern times that's more like sci-fi-esque, but ultimately, people play these games for the historical setting. So first we have Temeraire by Naomi Novik. This is the first book in a long series of adult fantasy historical fiction, but this is the Napoleonic Wars with dragons. So far within this series, everything is the same as far as Napoleonic Wars. They just have dragons instead of other like kinds of well, they wouldn't have had aircrafts back there. They have like an air force of dragons. But that's really the only fantastical element. Thus far, I haven't seen any like magic, alchemy, anything like that. So it's just dragons. So if you're looking for something, again, more historical fiction based, with like some fantasy spice, this is your deal. In that same vein, we have Walk on Earth, a Stranger by Ray Carson. This is the first book in a trilogy. And this is a YA trilogy, but the main character in here is living during the Gold Rush period, and she has to go across the United States after a tragedy kind of befalls her, and has to go to Gold Rush, California. But she has a special ability in which she can sense gold in the earth. And obviously, if people find out about this, she is going to be in a lot of trouble and try to be used by a lot of people, so she's trying to kind of hide it. But that is the only fantastical element, again, thus far in this series that I know of, that is part of it. Just her kind of gold sense ability. But otherwise, it takes place in Gold Rush America, the same way it would have been, just with her sensing some gold around. And lastly, for this genre, we have Legacy of Kings by Eleanor Herman. This is the first book in a longer YA series that's, again, historical fiction fantasy blend, but it follows Alexander the Great and his whole story. But this actually has a ton of different protagonists in it that you follow, and there are fantastical elements mixed in. So if you want that kind of time period with some fantasy, but not full-blown fantasy, like this takes place in our world, it's following like the history of how things went down with some magic mixed in. Eleanor Herman's actually a historian that specializes in Alexander the Great, so she knows things and how things went down, and she knows how to put a spin on them, kind of weaving in different like myths and legends into the actual history of his life. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, definitely for you. Is it for the general Assassin's Creed feeling type books? You're probably like, you didn't even talk about assassins. I know, because it's really hard to find assassin books where the assassins actually kill people. But I do actually have some books coming up that are more about that, but there's plenty of people that recommend assassin books. Like, it's a genre. I just want to read some that I really, really like instead of being like, this is a book technically about an assassin, but either I haven't gotten to the part where they actually start really killing people all the time, or they don't really kill people. They're not morally gray. That kind of thing. I also do plan on doing a whole video about the Assassin's Creed Black Flag game. That is a pirate game. So there'll be pirate books. But I have some pirate books in my TBR that I want to get to before then to see if I can bring them in and recommend them there. So there will be a video about pirate books coming. And if you want to quench your pirate thirst, go and play Assassin's Creed Black Flag, because like, it's so good. Comment down below and let me know if there are any books that you feel would match up well with the Assassin's Creed game. I know there are Assassin's Creed books, but that's cheating. I don't want to do that. I don't really know. That's not the same. Like, books that aren't from the Assassin's Creed canon that you feel would be good for people who are fans of the Assassin's Creed games. Comment down below and let me know. I would love to read them. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye!